It was a cold morning. The sun had not fully risen, and the streets were still half dark. Armand stood outside the school gate, his small hands holding tightly to his torn school bag. His uniform was old and faded, and his shoes had holes in them. Some students passed by, laughing and talking. They looked at Armand and laughed louder. "Why do you even come here?" one boy said. "You don't belong in this school," said another. Armand didn't say anything. He looked down at the ground and stayed quiet. But inside his heart, he said something only he and his God could hear. One day, they will know. Armand came from a poor family. His father worked as a helper in a factory. His mother cleaned houses. They lived in a small one-room house in a busy part of the city. Every night, Armand studied under a dim bulb while his younger sister slept beside him. He was not the smartest boy in school, but he was the hardest working. While others played games, Armand read his books. While others laughed at him, Armand stayed quiet and focused. In class, no one wanted to sit with him. His clothes smelled of hard work, and his hands were often dirty. The rich students didn't like him. One day, during English class, the teacher asked, "What do you want to become?" "In life," a few students said, "engineer." Others said, "businessman or actor." When Armand's turn came, he stood up and said in a low voice, "Doctor." The class burst into laughter. "Doctor? You can't even buy lunch," one girl said. "Doctor, of what?" "Dreams," said another. Even the teacher gave a small smile, though she tried to hide it. Armand sat down slowly. His face was red, his hands were shaking, but his eyes were strong. He didn't cry, he didn't run away. That night, Armand told his father what happened. His father looked at him and said, "Beta, people laugh when they don't understand, but you must never stop believing in yourself. One day, you'll make them clap." Armand nodded. He didn't want to prove them wrong. He just wanted to prove his father right. The next morning, Armand came to school early. He went straight to the library. It was a quiet place. Books became his best friends. He read about science, the human body, medicine, anything he could find. He took notes, made charts, and memorized everything with full focus. But the mocking didn't stop. "Library boy is here again," someone said. "He thinks books will change his life," another laughed. Even the teachers didn't expect much from him. Some ignored him. Others told him to be more realistic. One day during recess, Armand was sitting alone under a tree eating a dry roti with salt. A group of students passed by eating burgers and drinking juice. "Is that your lunch?" one of them said with a fake shocked face. "Yes," Armand said softly. "Wow, Dr. Sahab eats salt and roti. That must be a new diet plan." They laughed and walked away. Armand closed his tiffin slowly. He didn't finish his lunch that day, but life was not easy at home either. One evening, his father came home late. His face looked tired and sad. "What happened, Abba?" Armand asked. "I lost my job," his father said quietly. "The factory shut down." The room went silent. His mother sat down. His sister started crying. Armand felt something heavy in his chest. They didn't have any savings. Rent was due. There was no food in the house. That night, Armand couldn't sleep. He looked up at the ceiling and spoke quietly. "God, you gave me this dream. I don't ask for much. Just help me hold on." The next morning, Armand found an envelope outside. Their door. There was no name on it. Inside, it was $500 and a small note. "Keep going. God is watching." No one in the family knew who left it, but Armand smiled. He felt like it was a sign from above, a small message to say, "Don't stop now." Back at school, the final term exams were near. It was Armand's last chance to prove himself. He studied every night, even when the electricity went out. He used a candle to read. He didn't sleep more than 4 hours. And then, the day came. The exam results were pinned on the school board. One by one, students checked their results. Cheers were heard. Some were sad, some were proud. Armand walked slowly to the board. His heart was beating fast. He looked up, rank 1. Armand Khan, 93.5%. He stood there, silent, still. His hands started shaking again, but not from fear, from surprise, from joy. He turned around. The same students who laughed at him were now silent. Someone whispered, "Is that the same Armand?" But just then, a voice behind him said loudly, "It's a mistake. He must have cheated." It was a senior teacher, a strict man. He walked toward Armand with anger. "There's no way you got these marks. You barely speak in class. You must have copied." Armand felt like the ground had been pulled from under him. Another teacher came forward. "He's a good boy. Maybe he really worked hard." The senior teacher didn't agree. "We'll investigate," he said. "Don't think this is over." Armand looked up. For the first time, he didn't feel sad. He felt strong. He had done nothing wrong. And if no one believed him, it didn't matter, because he believed in himself. That evening, he walked home quietly. He held the exam sheet in his hand. The roads were noisy, but his heart was calm. When he reached home, his father opened the door. Armand didn't say anything. He just gave the result sheet to his father. His father looked at it, his eyes wide. He hugged Armand tightly. "You did it," he said, tears in his eyes. Armand didn't reply. He just whispered, "They all laughed at me, but they forgot who I serve." The results were out. Armand had shocked everyone by topping the class. For one short moment, he had felt proud. For the first time in his life, he was seen, not as the poor boy, not as the joke, but as someone who could be something. But that feeling didn't last long. The school started an investigation into his results. The senior teacher, who never liked Armand, claimed he had cheated. He told the principal, "This boy can't do this honestly. Someone must have helped him." Armand was called to the principal's office. He sat in a small chair while 3 teachers looked down at him like he was a criminal. "Tell us the truth," one said. "How did you get these marks?" another asked. Armand stayed calm. "I studied," he said softly. They didn't believe him. That evening, he walked home slowly. The sky was gray, and so was his heart. As he entered the house, he saw his mother sitting on the floor, crying. His little sister was burning with fever. There were no medicines in the house. The local clinic had asked for money before giving treatment. Armand's father had searched for work all day, but came back with nothing. Armand placed his school bag on the floor and sat beside his sister. He held her small hand and looked at her weak face. She was shaking and mumbling in her sleep. His mother said, "We don't even have money for paracetamol." That night, Armand didn't open his books. He didn't read, he didn't eat. He just went to the roof of the building, looked at the sky, and cried. Tears rolled down his face as he whispered, "Ya Allah, I'm trying, but every door is closing. I don't know what to do. Please, just help us one more time." The next morning, Armand woke up before sunrise. His sister's fever had gone down a little. His father had left early to look for work. His mother was preparing tea without milk. Again, as he was leaving for school, he found another envelope outside their door. There was no name, just like before. Inside the envelope were 2 strips of medicine and another small note. "The door you knocked on. Heard you." His hands trembled. His eyes filled with tears again, this time not from pain, but from hope. He looked up, whispered "Shukriya," and ran to give the medicine to his mother. At school, things didn't get better. The students had heard the cheating rumor. They looked at him with doubt now. "Maybe he paid someone to write the paper," one whispered. "I heard the principal is going to cancel his result," said another. Armand stayed quiet. Every word was a cut, but he kept walking. In class, no one clapped when his name was called. No one said congratulations. He felt like a ghost, present but invisible. But one teacher saw the truth. Her name was Mrs. Nassim, an older woman, quiet but kind. She had seen Armand in the library many times. She had watched him read when others played. She had seen the spark in his eyes. One day, she called him to stay after class. "Do you have your notes with you?" she asked. Armand nodded and handed them to her. She flipped through the pages, dozens filled with handwriting, diagrams, formulas, and highlighted lines. The kind of work no cheater would ever do. She looked at him and said, "You don't need to explain anything to me. I believe you." Armand's eyes filled with tears. She smiled and added, "You keep your head down and keep walking. The truth always finds its voice." Still, the final decision was not in her hands. A meeting was held. Teachers and the principal sat in a room, deciding whether Armand's results would be accepted. At home, Armand sat on the floor near his sister, now recovering, and stared at his books. But he couldn't read. His mother placed her hand on his head and said, "Don't worry. Just do what you always do. Knock on the sky again." He got up, washed his hands, spread his prayer mat, and began to pray. He didn't ask for glory. He didn't ask for revenge. He just asked for one thing. "Give me a chance. Just one real chance." The next day, an announcement was made at school. All students were gathered in the assembly hall. The principal stood on the stage and said, "We have completed our investigation into the top student of this term." Everyone stared at Armand. Whispers moved through the crowd. The principal continued, "There is no proof of cheating. His notes, his previous results, and teacher statements all confirm one thing." Pause. He earned those marks. Armand couldn't believe his ears. The hall was silent. The city was still asleep when Armand left home. The streetlights flickered above him, and the air was cold. But he didn't feel it. Today was his first day at the coaching center. The man who had offered him the free scholarship, Sir Irfan, had told him, "You have something special. Now it's time to polish it." Armand walked into the coaching center quietly. It was a small building with 3 rooms, whiteboards, and long benches. The walls had pictures of toppers and inspirational quotes like, "The darkest night will end, and the sun will rise." He found a seat in the corner, opened his notebook, and waited. A few other students walked in. Most of them wore branded shoes and expensive watches. Armand kept his head low. One boy looked at Armand's torn shoes and whispered, "Looks like they're letting anyone in now." Armand heard it. He smiled quietly. He had heard worse before. The teacher entered and began the class. It was about biology, one of Armand's favorite subjects. As soon as the lecture started, something inside him lit up. He listened carefully, took notes faster than anyone, and answered questions that even the rich boys couldn't. By the end of the class, the same boy who made fun of him looked confused and a little afraid. Armand had something no money could buy: hunger, not for food, but for success. Back at school, things had changed a little. After the cheating accusation was dropped, some students stopped laughing at him. A few even tried to talk to him, but Armand didn't care. He wasn't there to be liked. He was there to become something. One afternoon, while sitting in the school library, he found a dusty book in the corner shelf. It was about human anatomy, used in medical colleges. He picked it up and flipped through the pages. It was hard, complicated, big words. But he didn't give up. Every day after school and coaching, he came back to the library and read one page, then another, then another. He started to understand things that weren't even taught in school yet. Slowly. He began to teach himself. But time was not his friend. His father still hadn't found a stable job. His mother had started getting sick. Often, she had back pain from years of cleaning houses. One evening, Armand came home and found his father sitting alone in the dark. "We have no money left," his father said. "I might have to pull you out of school." Armand's heart dropped. He sat down beside his father. "There has to be a way," he said. They sat in silence for a long time. Then, Armand said quietly, "I'll find something. I'll do something." His father placed a hand on his head. "You're already doing enough." But Armand had made up his mind. He wouldn't let his dream die in the dark. That weekend, he went to a local clinic and asked if they needed help. The doctor looked at him and laughed. "You want to work here?" "I just want to clean, arrange files, anything," Armand said. "I want to be around real doctors." The doctor looked at him again, this time with curiosity. "You come here every evening. No salary. Just to learn?" Armand nodded. The doctor finally said, "Fine, but don't get in the way." And so every evening after his coaching class, Armand would go to the clinic. He cleaned the waiting area, arranged chairs, filed patient reports, and watched quietly from the corner. He saw doctors treat wounds, calm crying children, give injections, and save lives. He watched. He learned. He absorbed. One evening, something happened that he would never forget. A man rushed into the clinic carrying a small child who had fainted. "There's no one here!" he shouted. The nurse had stepped out. The doctor had gone to the nearby hospital for an emergency. Only Armand was there. The man was crying, "Please, someone help my son!" Armand had watched this situation before. He ran to the back, grabbed the oxygen mask, and tried to place it on the child's face. The man shouted, "What are you doing? You're not a doctor!" "I know," Armand said, "but I've seen this before. He needs oxygen until the doctor comes." He did what he had seen the doctor do 100 times. 2 minutes later, the doctor arrived and took over. The child was saved. The doctor looked at Armand and asked, "Who gave him oxygen?" The man pointed. "He did." The doctor turned to Armand and smiled. "You're not just a cleaner anymore. You've got something inside you." Word began to spread. A schoolboy had saved a child's life at a clinic. Sir Irfan heard about it. Mrs. Nassim heard about it, and something began to change. The next week, Armand was called to the school stage during morning assembly. The principal, who once doubted him, stood beside him. "This boy," he said, "is not just a student. He is an example." The whole school clapped. This time, the applause was real. This time, no one laughed. Armand stood there, shy, quiet, still wearing the same worn shoes, but inside him, a fire was burning. That night, he went to the roof again. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you, I know now. Even when the world gives me darkness, you will send light." Armand was finally being noticed. The school that once ignored him was now proud of him. The coaching center respected him. Even the local clinic trusted him. But not everyone was happy behind the claps, behind the smiles. Some people were watching. Some people didn't like his rise, especially one boy, Rayyan. Rayyan came from a rich family. His father owned factories. He had everything: money, cars, connections. But there was one thing he didn't have: Armand's respect. And that made him angry. One day in coaching class, the teacher asked a difficult question about the human brain. No one answered. But from the back corner, Armand raised his hand. He gave the correct answer, clearly, confidently. Everyone turned to look at him with surprise. Rayyan clenched his fists under the table. He was used to being the topper in that class. But now, a poor boy in torn shoes was taking his place. After class, Rayyan and his 2 friends stood outside the gate. They watched Armand leave quietly. "He thinks he's a hero now," one friend said. Rayyan didn't reply. He just smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. He's about to learn his place, he said softly. That evening, Armand returned home to find his father worried. What happened, Abba? He asked. We got a notice. Someone complained to the building owner that we're keeping illegal items in the house. Armand's eyes widened. What? We don't have anything illegal? His father nodded. I know, but now the owner wants to evict us. Armand sat down, shocked. Who would do such a thing? He had never harmed anyone. He had only studied, worked hard, and minded his own business. But it didn't stop there. The next day, when he reached school, something strange happened. The principal called him into the office again. Armand, he said with a serious tone, we received an anonymous tip. Someone said you've been using unfair means in coaching tests. Armand was stunned. I haven't done anything wrong, sir, he replied. The principal nodded. I want to believe you, but there's a photo circulating of you holding answer keys. What? Armand said, shocked. The principal showed him a blurry photo on a phone screen. It showed someone wearing a hoodie holding a paper with answers, but the face was unclear. Armand's heart dropped. I never held anything like that, he said. Someone is framing me. But who? Deep down, he already knew. After school, Armand went to the coaching center. Before he entered, he saw Rayyan standing with his friends, laughing. Their eyes met. Rayyan smiled. Not a kind smile, a smile that said, I got you. Inside, Sir Irfan looked serious. I don't believe the photo, he said. But I need to be fair to all students. So, I can't attend class? Armand asked. Just for a few days, until we check the matter, Sir Irfan replied gently. Armand nodded slowly. He felt like the walls were closing in again. The same world that was starting to clap for him was now turning cold again. That night, Armand didn't go to the roof. He sat beside his sister, who was reading a children's book. She looked up and asked, Pi, will you still be a doctor? Armand paused. He looked at her tiny hands, her bright eyes full of hope, and he smiled, even though his heart was breaking. Yes, he said. No matter what. The next morning, instead of going to school, he went to the clinic. He cleaned the floors, arranged the files, and sat silently in the corner. The doctor noticed his quiet mood. You look different today, the doctor said. People think I'm a cheat, Armand replied. The doctor leaned forward and said, when you start to shine, shadows will try to follow you, but remember, truth never needs to shout. It just stands tall. That evening, something unexpected happened. Ryan's friend, Saad, called Armand secretly. I need to meet you, he said. Alone. Armand was confused but agreed. They met near a small tea stall. Saad looked nervous. Ryan planned. Everything, he said. He used his cousin to create that fake photo, and he told someone to complain to your landlord, too. Armand's eyes widened. Why are you telling me this now? He asked. Saad looked down. Because I saw what you did at the clinic. You helped that child. You're not a fake. You're better than all of us. And I'm tired of helping someone do wrong. Armand felt a mix of anger and relief. He now had the truth. The next day, Saad went with Armand to meet the principal and Sir Irfan. He told them everything. He even showed voice messages where Rayyan laughed about teaching Armand a lesson. The truth was out. Rayyan was suspended from the coaching center, and the school issued a public notice clearing Armand's name. When Armand returned to class, some students looked at him with respect. Some looked away in shame. Rayyan didn't return, and Armand? He sat quietly in his usual corner. His name was clean again. But more than that, his heart was stronger now. He had survived another trap. That night, he stood on the roof again. He looked up at the sky. So many stars. So much silence. The morning was calm. The birds sang softly outside the window. Armand's sister was laughing over a cartoon on their old TV. His father had just left for another job interview. His mother, tired but smiling, handed Armand his lunch. Everything felt peaceful, too peaceful, like the silence right before a storm. Armand reached school and found a surprise waiting. His name was on the Science Olympiad selection list. He had been chosen to represent the school in the national round. Only one student from each school had been selected. And this year, it was Armand. His heart jumped. He ran to the staff room to confirm. Mrs. Nassim smiled proudly and said, "Yes, Armand, you earned it. Go make us proud." His hands trembled as he held the confirmation letter. His dream of becoming a doctor was finally one step closer. He left school early that day to give the good news at home. As he walked back, he imagined his mother smiling, his father hugging him, his little sister dancing in joy. But when he reached home, everything was silent. The door was open. Too open. He stepped inside and saw his mother sitting on the floor crying. His father was in the corner, staring at a paper. His sister was not there. Armand's heart began to race. "Where is she?" he asked quickly. His mother didn't answer. She was sobbing too hard. His father finally spoke. "They took her." Time stopped. Armand couldn't understand. "Who took her? What do you mean?" His father handed him the letter. It was from the hospital. His sister had collapsed while playing outside. The neighbor rushed her to the emergency ward. She needed immediate surgery, but they didn't have enough money to start treatment. So the hospital kept her and sent the family a warning: pay within 24 hours or we transfer the case to social services. Armand felt like the floor under him had broken. He had no money. They had no savings. Even the medicine envelopes that used to come had stopped weeks ago. Armand ran to the hospital. He found his sister lying in a bed, unconscious. A tube was in her nose. Her hand was wrapped in a bandage. Machines beeped slowly beside her. A nurse stood nearby. "She needs surgery," she said. "We can't wait too long. Her condition is serious." Armand turned to the reception desk. "How much is it?" 35,000 rupees, the lady replied. It felt like someone had punched him in the chest. He didn't even have 500. He looked back at his sister, her tiny face pale and still. His knees gave up, and he sank to the floor. That night, he didn't sleep. He went to every shop, every neighbor, every place he had ever visited, begging. Some gave coins, some gave prayers, but no one had the kind of money he needed. He even went to Rayyan's house. But the gate was locked. He walked home slowly, shoulders heavy, face blank. It felt like the world was mocking him again, so close to success, so close to losing everything. At home, his father was silent. His mother had cried herself to sleep. Armand stared at the wall, tears falling from his eyes without a sound. He pulled out the Olympiad letter and looked at it. His ticket to the future. He picked up his old bag, tore out the good pages from his notebooks, and wrote a short letter. "Please help us. I'm willing to give up my dreams. Just don't let my sister die." The next morning, he stood in front of a pawn shop. He handed over his only phone, his Olympiad letter, and his watch, a gift from his grandfather. The shopkeeper raised an eyebrow. "What will I do with this letter?" "Just give me whatever." "You can," Armand whispered. The man gave him a small amount, only 2,000 rupees. Still not enough. Armand didn't give up. He walked to the local masjid and sat there for hours, holding a small paper with the words, "Please help me save my sister." Some people gave notes, some gave coins, most gave sad looks, but every coin felt like gold to Armand. By evening, he had collected nearly 19,000 rupees, still short, but enough to return to the hospital and beg them to start the process. He placed the cash on the reception desk, tears in his eyes. Please. She's just a child. The receptionist looked at the money, then at Armand. She didn't say much, just nodded, and sent the amount forward. They agreed to begin surgery the next morning. Armand sat beside his sister's bed, all night holding her hand. "Don't leave me," he whispered. "I'll give up everything. Just stay." Morning came. The doctor arrived. Armand kissed his sister's forehead as they wheeled her into surgery. He sat outside the operation room, knees pulled to his chest, eyes fixed on the red light above the door. Minutes passed, then hours, then finally. The red light turned off. The doctor stepped out. Armand stood up immediately. The doctor removed his gloves, looked at Armand, and said, "She's stable now. We saved her." Armand fell to his knees in sajda right there in the hospital hallway. Tears. Of relief, of gratitude, of pure broken joy. But his sacrifice had cost him. He had missed the Olympiad registration deadline. His seat had been given to the second student on the list. His chance was gone. No medal, no certificate, no spotlight. But Armand didn't regret it. Because when he returned home that night, he wasn't holding a trophy. He was holding his sister's hand. A week had passed since Armand's sister came home from the hospital. She was still weak, but her smile had returned. Armand sat beside her every night, helping her read storybooks, feeding her soup, brushing her hair gently. He had lost the Olympiad, but he had saved the only person who truly looked at him like a hero. One afternoon, Armand was returning from the clinic when his phone buzzed. It wasn't his usual phone. He had sold that. This one was an old keypad phone his father borrowed from a friend. The screen lit up. "Unknown number," Armand answered quietly. "Hello?" A deep voice spoke. "Is this Armand?" "Yes." "This is Dr. Shafiq. I run a scholarship foundation in Karachi. I heard about you." Armand froze. He stepped aside from the busy street and asked softly, "How did you hear about me?" The voice replied, "Your story was shared by someone from the hospital. The way you gave up your dream for your sister. It reached the right ears." Armand didn't know what to say. The voice continued, "We looked at your school records, coaching reports, and even that Science Olympiad shortlisting." Armand held his breath. Dr. Shafiq paused, then said, "We want to offer you a full scholarship for pre-medical studies, all expenses paid, coaching, travel, even living costs." Armand blinked. For a second, he thought he misheard. I don't understand," he whispered. "You earned this," the doctor replied. "And your time is not over. It's just beginning." Armand couldn't believe it. A moment ago, he was walking with nothing but old books and tired shoes. Now, someone was offering him a future. A door that had closed was opening again. He ran home and told his parents everything. His mother cried and held his face in her hands. I knew God was watching." His father looked at the sky and whispered, "Ya Allah, you never left us." His little sister clapped, even though she was still weak. "You're going to be a doctor, Bai, a real doctor." 2 weeks later, Armand traveled to Karachi for the first time in his life. A huge city, tall buildings, crowded roads, fast cars. He felt like a small ant in a giant world. But inside, he felt stronger than ever. The foundation had arranged a place for him to stay, a boys' hostel near the coaching center, simple, clean, and peaceful. He was given new books, a fresh uniform, a coaching schedule, and most importantly, hope. On the first day of class, the teacher walked in and said, "This batch will produce Pakistan's next doctors, surgeons, and researchers, but only if you work harder than you ever have before." Armand smiled to himself. He had already been doing that for years. He made no friends at first. He was quiet, focused, always in the front row, always with his notes. But soon, others noticed. He answered the toughest questions. He explained things to confused classmates without showing off. Even teachers started asking him to help weaker students after class. People began calling him the boy who learns like his life depends on it. They didn't know. It once did. One night, Armand sat in the hostel hallway with his notebook open. A senior student walked by and stopped. "You're Armand, right?" "Yes," he said politely. "I read about you. The kid who gave up a medal to save his sister." Armand looked down, shy. The senior said, "You didn't lose anything. You won something greater. And I promise you, if you keep going one day, you won't just save your sister. You'll save hundreds." Weeks turned into months. Armand rose higher with every test, from district level to provincial rankings, from being unknown to being watched by some of the top colleges in the country. But he didn't let it change him. He still called home every night, still read stories to his sister over the phone, still prayed the same simple prayer: "Guide me, hold me, use me for something good." One day, Dr. Shafiq invited Armand to a small event. "I want you to tell your story," he said. "Other students need to hear it." Armand stood on the stage nervously, holding the mic. His voice shook at first, but then he looked at the crowd, dozens of boys and girls like him, some broken, some afraid, some poor, some hopeless. He told them about the cheating accusations, the hunger, the traps, the night he almost gave up, the hospital, his sister, and the moment he got the call that changed everything. When he finished, there was silence. Then slowly, people began to clap. Some were crying. A boy in the front row whispered to his friend, "He's like us, and he made it." That night, Armand sat by the window in his hostel room, looking at the city lights. He remembered the rooftop of his old home, where he used to cry to the stars. Now he was under different lights, but talking to the same God. Years had passed. The boy who once studied under a dim bulb, who cleaned floors in a clinic, who sold his dream to save his sister, was now standing in front of a mirror, buttoning up a white coat. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from emotion. The name stitched on the front made his heart race. Dr. Armand Ali, student final year. It wasn't just a coat. It was a symbol of every prayer whispered on a rooftop, of every tear his mother cried behind the curtain, of every coin he collected in shaking hands, of every no he turned into a not yet. That morning, his college held the white coat ceremony. It was the moment every medical student waited for, the day they officially began treating real patients under supervision. His batch sat in silence, dressed in formal clothes, hearts beating. Fast, the dean stepped up and said, "This coat doesn't make you better than anyone. It makes you responsible for everyone." Armand looked down at the coat folded in his lap. He remembered his sister's tiny hand in his as she lay on the hospital bed years ago. He knew exactly what responsibility meant. When his name was called, he stood up. The applause from his batchmates faded into the background. For a few seconds, he didn't hear anything at all, just his own heartbeat. He stepped forward. The senior doctor helped him put on the coat. It fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for him all along. After the ceremony, he called home. His mother picked up. He didn't say much, just held the phone quietly. His mother said softly, "You're wearing it, aren't you?" "Yes," Armand whispered. "I can feel it," she said, tears in her voice. "Your father would be so proud." His father had passed away 2 years ago from heart complications. They couldn't afford private care in time. Armand had held his father's hand as he left this world, and he had promised, "One day no other father will go like this. Not if I can help it." Armand's white coat wasn't just a dream fulfilled, it was a promise. The hospital training began. Armand was assigned to the emergency ward first. It was the hardest place. Loud, stressful, full of accidents and trauma. Many students broke down in their first week, but not Armand. He had already seen pain before books taught him about it. He worked long hours, took short naps, and studied late at night. His seniors noticed his calm nature and sharp brain. One of them said, "He listens more than he speaks. That's what makes a real doctor." One day, a little girl was brought in, unconscious, bleeding, no ID, no family. Armand rushed to help. He cleaned her wounds, spoke softly to her, held her hand during injection. When she woke up, she looked around and cried, "Ami?" Armand knelt beside her. "Your Ami is coming soon. You're safe now." The girl stopped crying and hugged his arm. In that moment, Armand saw his own sister in her face. That night, as he walked back to the hostel, a nurse from the clinic he once worked at sent him a message. "Look at you now, Armand. We always knew." He smiled, wiped a tear, and replied, "Still learning, still praying." Later, his college arranged a visit to a rural village for medical service. Most students were nervous. Some didn't want to go, but Armand signed up first. When he reached the village, the people were poor, tired, and scared of hospitals. Armand sat on the ground with them, listened to their stories, treated their wounds. He spoke to an old man with chest pain who said, "Doctors don't come here." "You're the first one who looked me in the eye," Armand replied gently. "I'm not a doctor yet, but I'm here, and I care." Before leaving, a little boy gave him a flower. It was dry, small, almost falling apart. But to Armand, it was more valuable than any medal. He tucked it in his diary, next to a note he had written years ago. "If I ever wear the white coat, I'll wear it for the ones who were never seen." He returned from the village with a full heart. He opened his email to find a new message. It was from an international health NGO. They had read his story from a local blog. They wanted to offer him a spot in a global medical youth program. Only 10 students from all of Pakistan would be selected. Armand had made the list. He read the message twice, then 3 times, then he smiled and whispered, "Ya Allah, you really didn't forget me." His story was no longer just his own. It was inspiring others. Quiet students, poor children, broken families. They looked at Armand and thought, maybe we can survive too. That evening, he stood on the hospital roof. He still made time for that silence. The white coat rested on his shoulders. The city lights sparkled below. The stars above seemed closer than ever, and in that moment, he said softly, "They laughed at me. They doubted me. They trapped me. They ignored me. But they forgot who I serve." The sun was bright that morning. The hospital halls buzzed with movement. Patients, nurses, interns, stretchers. And in the middle of it all walked Dr. Armand Ali. Not student, not assistant, not helper, doctor. After years of studying, serving, and struggling, he had finally passed his final exams with distinction. He was now officially a licensed physician. He didn't throw a party. He didn't buy new clothes. He just walked into the hospital, wearing the same white coat with the same heart that had started this journey, a heart that never wanted fame, only purpose. That day, he had his first solo duty in the emergency unit. The senior on duty handed him a chart and said, "This one's yours. Let's see how the gold medalist handles pressure." Armand smiled humbly. He didn't care about the medal, but he cared about the patient. The case was tough. Internal bleeding from a road accident. The man had no ID, no family contact, and very little time. Armand made decisions calmly, instructed, the nurses clearly, and stayed beside the patient until the critical hours passed. The man survived. Later, the head nurse whispered, "You're not just a doctor. You're different." That week, his name quietly began spreading in the hospital halls. He listens more than he talks. He treats every patient like family. He's the one who understands pain, because he's lived it. Then something unexpected happened. One evening, the hospital received a visit from a popular TV news team. They were filming a series on young heroes in the medical field. The hospital director chose Armand to be featured. At first, Armand refused. "I don't want attention," he said. "I just want to serve." But the director said, "This isn't about attention. It's about showing struggling kids what's possible. Let them see what strength looks like." So, for the first time, Armand stood in front of a camera. He spoke in the same soft voice. He told them about sleeping hungry during school, almost dropping out, cleaning clinic floors, watching his sister fight for life, giving up his dream. Getting the call that changed everything. The host, a famous anchor, had tears in her eyes. She said, "Your story feels like a movie, but you lived it." When the episode aired, everything changed. It went viral across Pakistan. Social media exploded. The boy they counted out. Now the doctor saving lives. A real-life hero born from pain. They forgot who he serves, but now they see him. Armand's phone wouldn't stop ringing. People from his old school called, crying with pride. His former teacher, Mrs. Nassim, left a voice note. "They once laughed at you, Armand. Now the whole country stands for you." Even the boy who once cheated him, Rayyan, sent a message. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm proud of you. Truly." Armand replied simply, "I forgave you long ago. I hope you're doing better now." But the moment that meant the most came quietly. A letter arrived by post. Handwritten. Old-fashioned. From the same hospital where he once begged to save his sister. The letter read, "Dr. Armand, we remember the boy who cried at our front desk. Today, we're proud to say you're one of Pakistan's brightest doctors. We'd like to invite you to speak at our next youth camp, to remind every broken student that pain is not the end." Armand held the letter to his chest. He smiled and whispered, "Ya Allah, you wrote my story better than I ever could." Later that night, he traveled back to his old neighborhood. It had been years. The roads were the same, the lights still flickered. The smell of chai from the corner stall hadn't changed. He walked to the rooftop of his childhood home, where he once sat alone, talking to the sky. But this time, he wasn't empty. This time, he wasn't asking for help. He was saying, "Thank you." He looked up and whispered, "They counted me out, but you counted every tear and turned each one into strength." Suddenly, a small voice called behind him. "Bhai!" It was his sister, now taller, healthier, and smiling brightly. She held out a notebook. "I wrote an essay at school," she said. "It's about my hero. I wrote about you." Armand took the notebook, eyes filling with tears. His sister hugged him and said, "You didn't just save me. You saved hundreds now." And in that moment, he finally felt it. They saw him. The world, his past, his future, his people. But more than anything, he had seen himself. The broken boy who never stopped walking. The son who never gave up. The doctor who didn't just wear a white coat. He carried the weight of his journey with every step.